So where am I talking to you? Where do you live?
I live in Portland, Oregon.
Tell me your background.
Yeah, I was born and raised in Israel until I was 10. My parents are Ethiopian. At 10, we moved to Oregon.
What were your parents part of Operation Solomon? Were their parents like, how did they get, who was the
So
ones?
my mom's side of the family is Jewish, my dad is not. My mom wasn't a part of the operation. She has 9 siblings and only 3 were on the flight. Like, I have some family that came in the set, and then she just flew by herself, and so did my grandparents. So only 3 people were on sort of those operations. And then when my mom, wanted to bring her brother from Ethiopia to Israel, she went down to Ethiopia in, like, 1990, and then she ran into my dad. They went to school together when they were younger, and then that's how I was conceived. So then I was born in Israel, and then, they had their long distance, and then they decided to get married in Ethiopia, and then my dad moved to Israel. And, then I was born. I have a brother, younger brother. We lived in Jerusalem, in Talpiot, like, the first 6 years of my life, and then we moved to Rehovot, from like 6 to 10. And then when I was 10, my dad decided he wanted to get his PhD at Oregon State University. And that's how we ended up in Oregon. So Oregon is like my home base, like my
Mm.
American home base. I grew up
10 is
in,
a rough age to move to a new country. I brought my
yeah,
kids here, my boys, my girls were already here, but I brought my boys when they were, hold on, I'll tell you, almost 13, 11, and 7. So like it's not easy. Like how was
no.
that for you moving to America?
You know, I don't remember, like, not knowing English. I didn't know English, I knew, like, my name is Tali, but I didn't know English, but I don't remember, like, not knowing. And I do remember, like, I went to Lincoln Elementary School, and, like, we got there at 5th grade, and we got there, and we called it Lincoln, because the silent L, Lincoln? I'm like, English is so hard. But, yeah, I don't really remember not knowing English, because by the time I was in 6th grade, like, middle school, like, the next year, I was in English as a second language, like, those, like, one-off classes. But after, like, maybe a year, I wasn't in them anymore. So I don't really remember not knowing, and I feel like it's because I was so young and was able to sort of understand, like, pick up the language a lot easier than maybe somebody that's a little bit older, and that's why I don't have an accent. But, yeah, I went to middle school, high school, and I went to middle school and, like, 5th grade in Corvallis, and then we moved to McMinnville, and I, was in high school there. I had a very, like, busy high school 4 years. I was, like, on speech and debate, and I was on the softball team, and I ran cross country, and I just did, like, all the things. I was just very much in the mix of everything.
You're an
And
American
then,
girl.
yeah, exactly. It was, very interesting. I was just thinking about my high school because I have a keynote coming up that I'll be speaking in front of kids, and I was like, "What do I wanna talk about?" 'Cause in McMinnville, there was, like, no Jewish community. In Corvallis, there was a Jewish community. They actually helped us with, like, everything. Like, when we first moved to Corvallis, it was the synagogue that was there that helped us, like, help my parents get a house and, like, furnish it, and just, like, we had a Jewish life. In Corvallis, was in McMinnville, I didn't have that at all. I didn't really have any Jewish friends. I don't even think that there were Jewish students, to be honest. In my high school, there was only, like, 10 Black kids. So, it was not diverse at all.
I
But
mean, the Pacific Northwest is like,
yeah.
grotesquely white.
Yeah, exactly. It just is. And it's like I didn't have this, like, idea of, like, white, black. Like, I don't know. I guess I just didn't really care. I was just sort of like a kid.
There's
My parents didn't really talk about those things. So yeah, high school was interesting.
I think, like, obviously, racial awareness is something that exists in Israel as well, but it's a different dynamic than it is in America. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. There isn't,
yeah,
like,
it's not
us,
exploded.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not. And, I was just talking to somebody about this. I was like, Israelis are not racist. Like, obviously, there's, like, racist people everywhere, whatever. But in Israel, people are more classist. then they are racist. Like they
100%.
don't care what you look like, but if you have money, if you have power, they love you. If you don't have those things, they're sort of
People are
like,
more
oh,
opinionated about where you're from. I mean, like, Ashkenazi versus Sephardi, or he's a Moroccan, or he's an Ars, or he's a, you know what I
yeah,
mean? Like, I feel
yeah,
like that's a bigger thing than like he's black. It's a very
yeah.
different kind of,
It's so different. It's so different. That's why I have to have like so many conversations, especially, I have a lot of black friends. I'm like, you can't have these conversations about America and Israel. Like there is no us versus them. It's like completely different. And I think that was part of the reason why, my parents didn't really talk about race or anything like that growing up. Also, they came from Africa. They're immigrants to Israel, immigrants to America. Like that wasn't even, we weren't having those sort of conversations. And I think that played a role into how like my high school years were. Like I wasn't thinking I'm the only black kid. I was thinking like, I was like on like homecoming court and like all these things. And I really was like just me. And it's funny because I was just thinking about how my nickname in high school was Black Jew. Like people would make like funny raps and be like Black Jew. And it's funny because I was like, yeah, like both I am black and I am Jewish. And it was like, whatever, now it would be like a whole thing of like, you probably shouldn't say that. But it's like back then it was like, I graduated high school in 2009. So it's been a long time, different sort of reality. But that was my identity of being Jewish always existed, regardless of whether or not there was like a community of Jewish people. Like I was like, yeah, I'm Jewish, I'm Israeli. Like people knew that about me. But at 18, instead of going to college, which, I don't remember this moment of thinking I want to go to the IDF, but it was always like obviously like, in Hebrew we say muvan me'elav, like of
obvious.
course I'm going to join of course I'm going to go back to Israel, which is like not really that muvan me'elav. Like
I mean, my kids, my oldest just got a tour. Like it's not, it's not well.
exactly. So I don't know. I felt a real urge of like this is what I wanted to do at 18. Like I'm going to go to Israel. And yeah, I graduated high school in like June of 2009. And by August, I was already in basic training. And so that was like very, very different time. It was kind of sad to leave my parents. I do remember they like them leaving me at my aunt's house and me crying and being like, oh, so sad. But then it was like very quick after that, it just sort of like became normal life, of like I'm going to 3 months of basic training, which if anybody knows like Magan Mikhail, do you know that base?
Yeah.
So it's literally the base that if you're a newcomer to Israel, like you're going there. So everybody that I was with in basic training were from like Russia and the UK. And, everybody was like, there was a lady from Mexico. Like everybody came from all over the world and we were in basic training together. And it was like basic training and Hebrew lessons at the same time. Because at that point, I hadn't been speaking Hebrew for like 8 years. My parents speak the Amharic language at home. So I needed a refresher. After like a month one, they were like, why are you here? Like, you don't need help with Hebrew because it all sort of like came back to my mind. But yeah, it was a great time, but very hard 2 years. I remember like there was one day where my water bottle wasn't facing the right way, like when we're standing in rows. And she was like, you need to get down and give me 10 push-ups because of my water bottle. It just wasn't facing the right way. And it just broke me. I couldn't stop crying that day. Like for a whole week, I was like, I want to go back to America. It was sad, but I didn't have a choice. But yeah, it was great time. But yeah, after I was in the IDF, I came back to America. I did like a year of selling hair straighteners at the mall, like, all the Israelis do, of course.
Yeah, that's Israeli.
And then I came back to Oregon. I went to Portland State University. I studied communications. While I was in college, I was really active, like on campus with like JSU and CHI, the Cultural and Historical Association of Israel. I was also an Emerson Fellow with Stand With Us and just was really active within like Jewish life and advocacy on campus, which is really interesting. I just visited my friends who live in Panama. We went to college together. They're Jewish also. They're a husband and wife, and they met at Portland State. And we were talking about our experiences and how they were telling me how everybody was so anti-Semitic to them. And I was like, that's so crazy. I didn't experience the anti-Semitism. And then I had to think about it, and I was like, I didn't experience the same anti-Semitism because people were too scared because I was Black. So they didn't want to seem racist, but it was okay if they were like anti-Semitic to people who were not Black. You know what I mean? And I
It's
feel like,
it's the last politically correct hatred.
yes, it's so crazy because I'm like, oh, so my Blackness sort of protected me in these spaces because, not only was I active in Jewish life, but I was also like part of the Black student union and the African student union. And no one said anything to me. You know what I mean? No one was like, I don't know. Like, I don't even know I don't know what they could say to me that would make me feel any type of way. But everybody knew that I was an, former IDF soldier and all these things about me. I'm Israeli, these are things that I am very outwardly, like I tell people that all the time. Yeah. So that was very interesting to find out over Pesach. But yeah, I've worked in marketing for a long time now, sort of what I studied and interned in while I was in college. I worked with big brands. In the last, October 7th happened. I was in Israel like on October 7th. It was the last day. I had been there for a month. I was there from Rosh Hashanah until Simchat Torah. That was like my block of time to be in Israel. And October 7th was when my flight was. And that was like sort of the catalyst of a lot of things that happened to me personally. And obviously, as Jews, like we went through a lot. Like that time was really dark for us. Like it was just a very dark time. Thinking about it almost like always makes me want to cry, especially, today's Yom HaZikaron, and I'm just seeing like so many things about, people who were killed during this time. It's just really sad. And that time was also really when I realized who my real friends were, or if I have real friends, especially, friends who are non-Jewish. And
You discern that.
so when October 7th happened, I came back to America and pretty much deleted social media because from that moment, it was sort of like I couldn't see it. It was too much for me. I just was like crying for weeks, seeing all it just was really sad. I don't even know how to explain it. I have no words for that time. It was just a dark cloud. But I deleted my social media. I was really depressed and I had two friends that I would talk to all the time. And at this point, like I hadn't really gone outside and like Portland's sort of like a small town. If I'm gonna go have drinks somewhere, I'm gonna run into so many people. But around Thanksgiving, like November, end of November, I felt like I need to get back on social media. I want to know what people are posting. I want to know who's for me, because I don't want to go out and then see people and like show love and say, hey, how are you? And then they're like posting anti-Israel stuff online. If I'm going to go outside, I need to know like what's happening. Yeah, exactly. And so I went on social media on Thanksgiving and I see my friend, literally one of my closest friends that I talk to on a daily basis. Like she's met my parents too, before my parents now live in Israel, but before even, we had been friends for like almost 10 years. And I see that she posted something like Israel's committing a genocide. And I'm like, what? I talk to you every day. Like, this isn't just like a, whatever sort of friend. This is like, I talk to you every day. You've never even brought this up to me? And also, it's just like, now thinking back to it, talking about genocide in November of 2023, what are we even talking? Like, you fell into the propaganda so hard. Like, that is crazy. And so I sent her a screenshot and I said, what do you mean by this? Like, this doesn't sit right well with me, or it doesn't sit well with me. And so she said something like, yeah, Israel is committing a genocide. And I was like, well, I literally just typed out, I was like, thank you for letting me know where you stand. We are no longer friends. And I think that like what hit hard for me was like, she doesn't know who I am. When you say this, you're saying I'm committing genocide. There is no us, them, like I am Israel at the end of the day? And that's how I view it for myself, especially when you see so many soldiers like passing away and getting killed. It's like I feel that on such a deep level. When I was in the military, I was in Gibati. I wasn't a combat soldier, but I'm on a base with like 500 men they're kids. You know what I mean? So whenever I see anybody that's passed, it just brings me back to like my soldiers. Like these are my brothers. It's just so sad. So anything that is about Israel, anything that's about the IDF, I take it very personally. And yeah, I lost that friendship. She tried to, like, reach back out and, like, say a bunch of things, but I she said, like, "I didn't wanna talk to you about it because I knew how you'd react." Okay, like, I don't know why you'd react this way. You have nothing to do with, Palestine, Gaza, like, what is it to you? You know, I'm your friend. Like, go have lunch over there. I don't really, like, that's really what I was thinking is, like, what does it help you? Like, you don't have yeah, it was just a crazy thing with that friendship, but that sort of was, like, the catalyst of me realizing that I've been a really good friend to people who were not gonna do the same for me. So, October 7th happened. I wasn't active on social media. I was sort of scared. I also just was, like, working somewhere and you know what happens sort of now if you are on a certain side of politics or the pro-Palestine movement, people are like, "Let me call your job and get you fired," you know? And at that point, I had gotten laid off too. So October 7th happened. I'm like losing friendships and I got laid off. And then for 6 months, I was just sort of looking for another job. And then I found another job. And I just wasn't thinking about sort of Israel or advocacy. I just sort of was like posting what I wanted on my social media for friends to see. And I would have conversations here and there. And then, I'm sort of going through this realization. I also started therapy again during this time because, this was,
Yeah.
yeah, this was a hard time. And so during this time, I also realized that I'm a people pleaser. And realizing that you're a people pleaser is like really sobering. I don't
How
know
did
how to explain
it
it.
show up for you? What did that look like?
I was a really good friend to people. Like, and I think a lot of it is also cultural. Being a friend in Israel to your friends are like family, it's not like surface level. It's like you're either friends, we're family, or we're sort of like hi bye, like acquaintance. You know what I mean? And so I took my friendships like very, very seriously. And it showed up in a way of like one of my friends was getting married and I couldn't go to her bachelorette. It just didn't make sense for me, like, financially because I had just gotten the project that I was on was just ending, and I wasn't sure if I was gonna get this new job. I ended up getting the new job, but I didn't wanna commit to going on this, like it was gonna cost, like, a good $3,000 to go on this, like right.
And like bridesmaid, it's insanity. I had no
No, it
bridesmaids.
is.
I'm not doing that to people.
It was like it's like, why do we need to go to Tulum, you know? Like, why are we going to Tulum? I also need to pay for 2 dresses for the wedding. I need to pay for a pair of shoes. Like, there was just for her wedding, it was gonna be, like, around almost $10,000, and I'm like,
Like
I
I
was
just
like,
don't
"I
like you
can't
that
come
much.
to the."
I just don't like you that much.
And this was a close friend, but I was like, "I can't go to the bachelorette. I'm sorry." So and then I just didn't hear from her. And I was like, "That's crazy because this is not, this isn't just like a one-off friend." But I realized that if I didn't reach out, we were never gonna talk, you know? And that sort of showed me like, I don't really wanna be friends with you. You know what I mean? Like, it really sobers you up. I don't really know of a better way to, like, describe this, but it shows you, like, I've been a friend to you in the way that I would expect somebody to be a friend to me, and you've never showed up this way. And you don't realize it, after long years, you're like, "Whatever, like, this is my friend, like, I'll do anything for them." And so once you sort of realize this, you're like, "I can't even view you differently. I can't show up in this friendship in a way that is authentic to myself." So that friendship ended. And so then another friendship, and, this is like 6 months later, one of my close friends, her mom had passed. And so I heard her mom's passing, like, I'm coming to help you. She's still sort of like an only child. She has a brother, but it doesn't matter. So I just flew down to go help her pack her mom's house. You know what I mean? Like I didn't even think about it. And also during this whole time, I'm sort of like in between jobs. I work in marketing. So the economy has been sort of like weird. And so, but I didn't care, it's whatever. Like, I'm gonna come, like, I'll pay for the ticket for myself. I'm gonna come and stay with you for the week, and I'll help you pack up your mom's house. And I did that. And then so I was like, I'll be in New York. I'll be on the East Coast in a few months. I'll come check up on you. And so then usually I stay with her, and she sort of was like, "Where are you gonna stay?" And I was like, "What? Like, I don't even have to come here. Like, I was
Right.
literally coming to check up on you." So I just realized that sometimes the things that you do for other people will not be reciprocated. And I need to find friends who either I don't care to do that or will reciprocate, you know? And so that friendship sort of ended because I was just sort of like, what? Like I just felt like in a weird situation of like realizing I do so much for other people and I need to like focus inwards. And that sort of brought me to September, October of last year, I've started posting on social media. And I think because I just sort of like got rid of like this layer of friendships that I was sort of pouring into and started to just be able to be authentically myself and like pour into myself, I was able to just have success really quickly. And obviously, I knew that my story is sort of unique. I'm Israeli, I don't have an accent, I'm Jewish, I'm Black. People are so like surprised by that in America. So yeah, I started posting in September of last year, right after Charlie Kirk passed. That was sort of my catalyst. I really liked how passionate he was about America because I was like, wow, he's really like not just that, he's a Christian and, Judeo-Christian values are sort of similar. He also really loved Israel. He also like made me love America. I like ordered his like pocket constitution maybe like a week or two before he passed. It was like very fascinating. His voice for America really inspired me to speak up about Israel because I felt like I'm not doing enough at all. In the 2 years since October 7th, I hadn't really used my voice on social media. Obviously I'd repost things to share within my realm, but I have a marketing background. I know how to sort of like I understand how social media works and I understand the science behind it. And so yeah, I posted on social media like right after and I went viral pretty quickly. I sort of was like, hey, this is me in the IDF. Like that's like my first video of like, this is me 15 years ago in the IDF. That went viral. And then it was like right before Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur was like October 1st, I think. It was like a Thursday or Wednesday. And I fasted and prayed. And I know you're not supposed to write on Yom Kippur, but I wrote in my journal. And I was just sort of like, talking with God, like, I don't know if this is for me. I also got laid off during this time. So I was like, I'm free. I literally felt like, I'm free from like what my friends might think. I'm free from like my job situation. I'm just free to like really be who I'm supposed to be. And so I was just praying, give me a sign like if this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And one of the things that I wrote down was like, I want to go to Israel, but I don't want to pay for it. And so that was Yom Kippur. And then October 1st was Yom Kippur. It was like Wednesday or Thursday. And then Sunday, I got an email from Tel Aviv Institute and they're like, hey, we'd love to have you in Israel. Would you come to like our conference? And I was like, okay, like if this isn't a sign, I don't know what is. This was like a very definitive sign of like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And so, yeah, I just continued to make content. I went to Israel. I stayed in Israel. I extended my flight beyond the conference. My parents live there. So it was very easy to just extend. I saw all my family. I have so much family in Israel. So I got to spend time with my aunt and uncles and my cousins and just like have a really good time. And I felt really grounded. It's definitely been uncertain at times in terms of like making sure that I'm able to pay my bills. But I just feel like I'm supposed to be doing this and because everything works out. And I think that that's the power of like just trusting God and trusting like what you're supposed to do. And really, I'm realizing that this is what I'm supposed to do. And like, this is my purpose because I'm not doing anything that is like so outside of who I am and like what I've been created to be. And, it's like, I just got booked to do a keynote and like, I'm literally just talking about myself and my story, and that's like, so I don't know, it's so insane. When you look at yourself in the mirror, when you think about yourself, like everything just seems so ordinary. But I guess, when you talk to other people and you tell them your story, regardless of who you are, it is interesting, and it's like I was made to have this purpose. I feel like my mission is to show people to be authentically yourself, And I think we're all made in such a way that is so special. Like we should be able to be who we are. And especially as Jews at this time and moment, it's like in America, people are sort of like scared of showing who they are. But it's like we're so privileged to be Jewish. You know what I mean? Like he gave us the Torah. Like who, like we got chosen, especially when you think about it as like a person, an individual. I think about there's only 15 million of us, and I got chosen to be one of those, you know? Like how I can't imagine being anybody else, you know, like how wonderful is that? And I think that that is my mission is to like show Jews like you should be proud of that regardless of what the world thinks. Whether it was, you know, back when the Holocaust was happening and I know a lot of things bad things were happening and now it feels like a lot of bad things are happening. I think about the hostages who were able to convert to being Muslim and they would have gotten a better life, but they didn't do that because it's such a privilege to be a Jew, you know? And we all know this, you know, as we go through life and just reminding people that.
So when I say the words awake Jewish woman to you, what does that mean?
It means like I think about like being grounded. You know, you already are Jewish. Be grounded in who you are and what that means to you. And regardless of how that manifests itself. I know that, you know, in America it's sort of being Jewish is sort of a little bit more cultural than it is like religious, whereas in Israel, it's sort of, you know,
It's a lot of
I don't
things.
really,
It's a lot
it's
of
a
things.
lot of things, but
Yeah.
it's sort of, you know, in I feel like um in America there isn't like God and Judaism doesn't really go together, which is really interesting to me. Whereas in Israel, it is, you know, like you go, you know, you'll see cars and it says Abba Torah or En Od Milvado. You know what I mean? Like that
Right,
is
even
like
people who are secular, like women in their booty shorts, like you're like, "How are you?" They're like, "Toda lael," you know, and it's like,
exactly, exactly. Like that is literally like, you know, Hashem's is like spoken in everybody's mouths in Israel where and I feel like that's like what I think about is like having an awakening as a Jewish person, as a Jewish woman, is having that relationship first and foremost. You know, it's not and it could be cultural, but at the end of the day, what is culture? It's like if you're lighting a Hanukkah candle, you're saying Baruch atah Adonai. Like you know, there is no Judaism without the creator. And that's what I think about. It's like an awakening of like a spirituality and we can find that within Judaism because I think a lot of the times we'll think, especially if you've grown up in a certain way of Judaism, you'll think about spirituality as like Buddhism or like you know you're sort of looking outside of Judaism for that spirituality when it really could be found within our culture, within our religion.
what does your spirituality look like?
You know, it's interesting. I would like, for example, I light Shabbat candles every Friday. I don't keep Shabbat. I would love to, you know, one day. I would say I'm modest. Do I wear skirts and dresses all the time? No, but I am modest. You know, it's like my spirituality is sort of like trying to keep the mitzvot as best as I can, you know, and having that. And, but really, it's like keeping the creator like central in my life. You know? And I think that that's what it really comes down to, but it manifests in ways that are very Jewish. Yeah, and I think it's sort of just day to day, it's being a light to others, doing everything with love and rather, you know, and like sort of pausing, understanding that I'm a representation of the creator is really what I think about my spirituality.
Cool. Is there anything else that you think that my followers should know? You're talking to a lot of different Jewish women, so
I
Mike is yours.
I don't know. I think maybe, you know, I've been having this conversation a lot, but I think maybe, you know, bring back the spirituality. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. You know, it doesn't have to be that you have to be like super orthodox or super secular. It could be a traditional in a sense. You know, in Israel we have the traditional sort of woman that I feel like is sort of missing within. You know, you don't have to be like super orthodox or or secular. It could be somewhere in the middle, which I feel like in America is sort of missing. Because in Israel, you can be traditional and you don't have to be all or nothing. Like if you want to wear a skirt on Yom Shabbat, you can do that, and it you're not like faking it. You know what I mean? And I think that there is this idea of like you're not all the way religious or you're not all the way connected if you don't do all the things. When it's like you just need to go to Israel. You know, it's like people will wear a head covering and wear pants. You know what I mean? That's like very normal.
Literally me.
Yeah. It's like that's
And then I
normal.
wear like my flowy pants and my t-shirts. Like totally.
Exactly, and I feel like that's where we need to just, like, get closer to being Jews and, like, just closer to the creator, and, like, that's what Jews Judaism is about. It's not about the cultural things. It obviously, yes, that's a part of it, but we have a covenant with God. That is what being Jewish is.
Well, thank you so much, Tali. I so appreciate it.
Yeah, it was so nice to meet you. Bye.